Does a religion really offer you anything at all from a spiritual point of view? Anything at all? Or is it just a waste of time? Hi, I'm Michael Shevack. Welcome to Godsearch. We are here to encourage the experience called God, the life experience called God. That's what harkens us here. That's what we're drawn to. And that is not an issue of your religion's right, my religion's wrong, or my opinion's right, your opinion's wrong. That is about having the living, breathing, holistic experiment of discovering true spirituality, which is built into the design of life. Anyway, today we've been doing so many podcasts where I've basically been talking to the camera to get kind of a foundation. Today we're going to make a bit of a change. I'm actually going to try an interview. I've really never done this before, so I'm all wobbly on this thing. So thank you for, allowing me to practice. I really appreciate it. But I think it's really important to just move outward to the incredible taste of all the panoply of different faiths and different spiritual approaches that are part of the Godsearch marketplace out there. It is an amazing thing how people find their right place. Well, today, to initiate my sojourn into interviewing, I'm happy to invite Reverend Bruce Godner. He is the Secretary General of the World Christian Leadership Conference. He's a good friend, by the way, and he's represents a movement which has in its time fascinated, intimidated, brought in so much negativity, but has achieved so much in terms of helping the entire world. It's just a fascinating story about a God search. Reverend Godner, Bruce, welcome.
Yes.
Hey,
Rabbi.
tell
Yes.
me about
Sure.
your God search. Tell me about your God search.
Sure. My God search. I think I wasn't looking for God. I think my search was maybe running or going. I was planning to go around the world. I bought a school bus that was built in South America. It was a camper, and I was working at a bus company at one point in my life. And I thought, I'm going to take this bus around the world. And I had this thought that I'm going to go around the world in search of something. And I don't think it was religion or God at that point. And I had this sense that I'd go around the whole world and come back, and then my next door neighbor would have the answers that I was looking for. So I thought, why go around the world? Anyway, I think I was looking out the window. I remember every Sunday, my house was next to, of course, a neighbor's house, and I come from a Jewish background, not overly religious. My family was not religious, although I have rabbis in my somehow in my ancestry, and I have other people that are pretty significant. But I think as a nominal Jewish young man growing up, it was a kind of a Jewish neighborhood, not overly religious, but I had one non-Jewish person in the neighborhood living next to me.
Oh, wow.
And so every Sunday, I would I wasn't doing this religiously, but I would look at my window every once in a while, and there'd be this family that's going to church. And I just was like, who are these people? And they're different. I knew they're different. I knew they're people, but I also knew they had a different something that moved them, from inside out. Okay, that was just a kind of a reflection of something I was beginning to question.
It's a seed.
It's just a little bit of a seed that there's differences.
Right.
But it's interesting, and even at a young age, and maybe there was, I don't know if there was any discrimination, but somehow there must have been, because I felt like they were like lesser, a little bit lesser. Maybe they were a little poorer, a little lesser. but I couldn't really put my finger on what the lesser was. I have a feeling it was from everybody else's, like this other faith, and that they have this other faith, and ours, of course, is the right faith. I didn't know what it was, but it was the right faith. Anyway, fast forward, I guess as I'm um I guess I have to go pretty far forward, pretty fast.
Yeah, you
Because
do.
I don't remember a lot going on in terms of the search. Um, I could just tell you that when I was in California, I went to school in California, which was a whole interesting thing. Um, I was really just going to California because I like California, not even to go to school, but I was going to school. Um, and uh, I would meet Christians along the way, sometimes, yeah, and they were trying to save me. I think you had a similar experience at one time, and and I wasn't really open at all. But I would go in there. I remember going in a truck. I was at a swap meet in California, Southern California, and this guy asked me to pray with him. And I went in this really hot pickup truck, and I remember I, I remember him just trying to pray, and I'm like, it's really hot in here. That's all I can think about. It's really hot. And he did his prayer, and I said thank you, and I left. I mean, that was, so somehow things were moving in that direction. California, I felt, is a place. Southern California was very different than New York. I felt not a lot of roots there. A lot of a lot of searching, many things, but not a lot of deep roots, and like family. Um, Fast forward a little bit further, um, I met somebody in my life. Trying to think if any significant. I mean, there's a lot of little things along the way, but I met somebody that was very interesting because she had. I was playing frisbee. I like sports. I didn't like school. Playing frisbee out on the campus, and someone looks at me, and, and I find out about for sure about this later, and she was told to remember this face, and you're going to know him for a very long time. So she did. So she really looked at my face, and then the next thing I know, I'm living up in the mountains in Southern California. I owned a horse. I did everything I really wanted to do. I owned a horse. I was getting ready to go around, like take a horse and travel with my horse through the mountains, until I thought about mountain lion and all other kind of stuff that's in the mountains in California.
Fast
And
forward.
and and so she had met me. She was looking for an apartment, and I lived at this place. The manager said to me, if anybody comes by looking for a place, it was a very unique place. It was actually, believe it or not, it was like a Jewish refugee camp. There were these Jewish people were being kind of chased from city to city, and they would set up this kind of housing, maybe 30 cinder block houses, very small, like maybe 24 by 24 size, and then they were cut into smaller apartments. And I was living in a double. This woman comes up, or a young lady comes up with a friend, and she looks at me, and she just has this huge smile on her face. And I couldn't quite figure it out. This is the second time she saw me, and the first time I saw her. She Anyway, we got to know each other a little bit. No, we didn't. No, that was it. I never saw her again till we wound up in the same speech class together, of which I really didn't like. Um, anyway, she was very good. She was into theater, into music, and she really gave very nice speeches in our class, and I really struggled. Anyway, somehow we got connected, and very different type. And I've told her this for many years. It must have been God or the spirit world or something to put us together, because she was so different than the persons that I would have dated. Um, and so anyway, we wound up, becoming very good friends. And she was into metaphysics and into alchemy and into astral projection, and and I knew it was real. I knew it was real for her because she never talked about it to anyone unless they asked. Um, and so Anyway, one night I had a profound experience. I mean, a really, I mean, one of those out of body experiences. And all I knew was, I'm lying in I'm lying in this bed, and she's lying next to me. And um, the next thing I know, I hear this sound, and it sounds like a refrigerator, and it's just going very, kind of, but it was getting stronger and louder. And I said, "Do you hear that?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "What is it?" She said, just relax." And and I guess she's had these kind of experiences before I hadn't. And the next thing I know, I'm floating. I'm literally going, leaving my body, and the ceiling had extended to another maybe 8 or 10 feet. We had very low ceilings. Maybe they were like 7.5 feet, and this thing went up to 12 feet. And I remember when I was young, and I used to get a temperature, and someone would walk in the room, they'd look very small. I don't know if it was just the temperature, I was not feeling well.
Sure.
And that's what it looked like. It looked like I was looking down on myself. I'm a little down there and blah blah blah. And all I know was that I asked her, where are you?" And she said, "Up here." I said, "Where's up here?" Anyway, so this happened 3 times. I felt something. There was a power, of force that could have taken me and made me part of the wall. I mean, that kind of force. But
That
I,
happens. That
huh?
happens on a God search. These kind of things do happen if you're exposed to the right, people and teachers and right. You have to have it in your heart. You sounded like you were ready to kind of loosen up and let go a little bit of the earth,
Yeah,
open up and
yeah.
let something kind of California come in, which is
Yeah,
not, not
absolutely. Yeah, and it
you're
did.
like
It gave me
Dorothy. You were going to go to
the.
Oz. You were going to go to Oz.
So, and I had a master. I mean, I had somebody that was really knew about this stuff that I had no clue of. Anyway, so I came out of that experience saying, there's something I have no clue. There's a force in this universe that I don't know what we call it. I didn't call it God at that time. And then it was, but it was loving. I could feel that there was no ill ill desires from this force. It was very comforting and strong and clear and powerful, but loving and good. I left that experience saying, uh, I'm not looking for the truth, but if I ever find the truth, it's going to have to explain my only experience.
All
So
right.
I
So
knew that.
I got to move you forward. How did you get
Yes.
formally affiliated with any kind of religion?
Okay, yeah. So
Because there are things that I want to discuss
sure,
beyond.
we'll make this. I'll move this. Came back to New York with my wife, or we were like fiance at the time. Um, Met a friend, a martial art instructor, teacher. I went to school with him. Yeah, in high school, I knew him. He asked me about if I'm interested in religion. I said no, but I said I know somebody who's very interested, and uh, and so let me introduce you to her. And I'm interested in martial arts. Okay, like so. I'll, when you finish with her, then we can study. I'd be happy if you open a dojo here in New Rochelle. Okay, so they met. She went to a seminar for 3 days, came back, and said everything I've been looking for since I'm 13 years old is here. I
Did you?
said, Excuse me." I thought I was everything she was looking for since she was 13. But anyway, so and she said, I think I'm going to work with these people. And I had this feeling inside. I don't know. This was like not a good feeling. This was not a God feeling. I was feeling, I think, jealous, a little bit angry, jealous. Somebody found what they were looking for. I have no clue what it is, where it is, or certainly to find it. So I remember she was on the phone. It was Wednesday. She had just come back on Monday, encouraging me to go to the seminar. And I said, no, no way. I'm not going. I'm not interested. And when she said, I think I'm going to work with these people, that just said to me, I think I'm not going to be with you. And I remember her on the phone that evening, and I'm getting ready to leave. I'm really getting ready to leave, and maybe go. If she found what she was looking for, I'm going around the world in my bus. Okay. So I was, and then as I'm thinking about what to do because it's painful, and I'm not going to this thing. I didn't have many options. So as I'm kind of like almost like pouting, like like you're on the phone, I need you, uh, what's going on, all this. Anyway, I I started thinking about her and not myself. And I said, sh- in my life, and maybe you can understand this very well, Rabbi, but unconditional love, okay? Not what you become, not the future, but right now, as you who you are, I love you. And I've felt that from this person. She loved me for not who I was going to be or what I'm going to do or anything but who I was. And I said, I owe it to her to go and at least find out what she's going to be doing in her life. And maybe even to find out if it's not good or whatever, maybe a little bit protective or so I decided to go to this seminar. And and anyway, I went and it was all over my head. I mean, it was over
Right.
my
So
head.
what was this?
God, Jesus, the Bible, um, you know, um, but I said, these are good people, and these aren't stupid people. These are smart, really smart people. And and I said, you know, they believe, these guys, they genuinely believe, and these were really sharp people. And what they were teaching made so much sense. It was logical. And I thought religion itself is to be illogical and just calls on our faith to understand it.
Right.
And this thing happened to be, and I know you had a chance to look through some of it and read it, and it made, so I prayed. My first prayer was, God, I really hope this isn't true because I have some things to do and I'm not ready for this truth, if this is true. So I'm still not convinced. Anyway, but it made a lot of sense.
All right. So
And
let's
yeah,
talk. What
yeah.
was it?
What was
Yeah, what did you find?
Well, I think the thing that caught me was the numerology, the numbers, the repeating history. I'm not a history buff, but I knew that these markers, there were things that were repeating, and why do things repeat? Normally, when you don't get it right, you have to repeat it. I
Right.
so I did poorly in Spanish and I had to repeat Spanish one, twice, you know. So, but I know what repeating is. It's not a good thing. Okay. It means that so I realize that history is cyclical, but not it hasn't come to its conclusiveness. In
I
other
got
words,
to
okay. Yeah,
let look.
yeah,
You were attracted to the rationale. There was a rationality to
that's
it.
right.
You did
That's
not
right.
expect there to be an underpinning of rationality. And we talk on
Very
God's
well said. Very
time
well said.
we talk on Godsearch all the time about the fact that there is a reason, with a capital reason. It's not always rational, but it's built into the very design of how life works. And therefore, it looks mysterious until you get there. But I need you to come to the punchline. Tell
Well,
everyone
here's the thing. Yeah, here's the
the
thing. One
organization
thing,
that you became interested in.
yeah, I think one thing is that I never ever thought that religion and science could come together. In other words, the internal, it wasn't part of, something that I never really thought about. But it, because the physical universe is so rational, logical, and orderly that if this creator created, you know, this thing called religion and created this thing called the universe, it's the same creator. So then the religion has to somehow coincide with something that makes sense. It can't be illogical and logical. Okay. So I was very impressed with that. Next weekend, she went to the workshop, and then I stayed home with our animals, and then she went, and I went, and she went. And eventually I just said, I said to her, if this is true, and they were asking, they wanted us to be part of them and really to become like missionaries. And and we were both into this Arnold Ehret's mucusless diet, and and they weren't quite into diet.
Well,
So so she
bring
had
it.
trouble with the fact of like committing and joining. I said, look, and here I am. If this is true, then this Arnold Ehret's mucusless diet will have to take a back seat to truth. So I helped her. Anyway, we both actually became missionaries. We separated because there was
For
no
what denomination?
the denomination. It was the Unification Church, originally the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity. Um, and I wasn't looking for any church. That's for sure. I was in a really
Right,
religion.
so that's
Yeah,
what happens on a God
yeah,
search. You start out with little tiny dribbles of neighbors who are Christian. You have other experiences of missionaries in trucks, and something
yeah.
building in you until you get a perfect mirror of yourself in the form of an object of your love. And it brings you back your own self love in a way that you really don't understand completely, but it leads you exactly to where you need to be in your life. For those people out there, the Unification Church
Yeah.
is a marvelous church that was founded by Reverend Sun Young Moon and his wife, Dr. Hak Yahan Moon. Some of you may be stuck in the 1970s and still have called them Moonies, which was a very derogatory return thing, and it implied that it was a cult and not a bona fide Christian perspective. They are completely a different organization right now. And it is astonishing the amount of good work and stuff that they have done all over the world. Bruce, would you just tell us a little bit about WCLC and what you do
Sure.
before I go
Yeah.
on to other things? Because I do want everyone to know the incredible the state right now of the urgency within the church.
Thank you. Yeah, the WCLC was based on the work that we were doing, the American Clergy Leadership Conference in America. We had we had we've been working with Christian clergy and other organizations, other religions, but we have other organizations that work more interreligious. The American Clergy Leadership Conference primarily was an organization designed for working with Christian. I was the Secretary General for that as well. Um, and so that really brings, well, in Christian terms, the body of Christ together, different denominations, helping to, just share a the commonality, but also to upgrade a little bit the 2,000-year-old understanding of from the Bible, same book, but a different, looking at it from a different angle, different vantage point.
Yeah.
And we in fact at 5 o'clock today we have a pastors forum, for example, in American Clergy Leadership Conference, where we're gonna look at the real essence of Jesus. And there's some real like new wine that's been coming forth to really um, help us to elevate to the next level of where I think God wants to take humanity. So our job has been basically, and the World Christian Leadership Conference has been to really bring clergy together, Christian clergy together, and break bread together, and they say iron sharpens iron. We work together. We discuss. We have, as rabbi, as you know, we have our morning meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, New York time, where we have various people on that call, and we really discuss things. We're reading things and discussing them. So I think that's because unity is the key. Unity, coming together for the body of Christ, or all religions need to come together in unity because we share so many of the similar values. There's a book right behind my, and I have it's partly holding, but this is a book called World Scriptures. I think you either have it, Rabbi, or you know about it, but it is and this is not part of the World Christian Leadership Conference, but it is a book that has brought the essence of every major religion by topic and looked at what they believe about loyalty, love, from the Bhagavad Gita to the Quran to etc. So that's my heart. That's where I come from. I am working with mostly Christians, but my heart is we all have to come together because we share the similar values. And I think, uh, Christians, honestly, in many times we live in a box, and that box is not always inclusive of other religions. And
Sure.
maybe we all live in that same box.
Sure. For those people out there, I really would recommend you get a hold of Father Moon's book, The Divine Principles, and Mother Moon's book, which is an extraordinary book as well. I don't remember the name of it.
Mother of peace.
What's marvelous is they do give a different perspective on
Yeah.
Christianity, which is, if you're interested in the nuances of different doctrines and their meanings and their implications, there's a really interesting challenge in it. They do not view everything the same way as everyone else. And in many ways, the theology is really quite luminous. I was really, really impressed. I had been invited um, to the opening of the Gong, which is a great marble temple that Mother Moon, who is now alone, Father Moon had passed on, and she is directing the actions of these organizations. She had built this incredible monument to the cause of world unity, and it was an incredible, exciting thing. I think there were at least 1,000 clergy from different denominations, and I was given the privilege of speaking as well. I just want to, I'm calling you right now because I want everyone out there to know that there is an urgent matter here that I would like to draw to everyone's attention. Mother Moon is over 80 years old. She is the mother of what, 14 children? Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And she is the mother to thousands and uncountably thousands of people all over the world through different denominations, some of whom are part of the unification movement and some of whom are not. She has been put into a kind of prison confinement situation by the South Korean government. There's a similar thing took place in relationship to the church in Japan. And just imagine an octogenarian with a slight heart problem being held in and incarcerated, not able to see people for more than 10 minutes a day. It's a horrendous situation. Um, I do know that the Trump administration has been very concerned about it. I do know that Paula White, who's the assistant to the Trump's Council on Faith, has been actively trying to open a door to them. Bruce, I'm concerned about her because her work is so extraordinary, and everyone out there who is interested on an authentic God search should really read about this amazing woman who started as 16 years old, if not younger, and her whole life opened up, to take on the entire world every day in her prayer and her actions. Bruce, tell me about Mother Moon right now. What is the situation there?
Well, actually, as of yesterday, yeah, her health condition is not good. She is virtually blind. She's lost her sight. I don't know exactly what it is, some degenerative problem. Um, she's fallen a number of times. In fact, she went to court and she went to the bathroom and she fell again. That was the third time she fell, and the prosecutor didn't want to let her, like excuse her from the court case. And the judge said, "Look, we have to, no, this is. I mean, she's in bad shape." She, I think it was 2 weeks before. There's no charges. I mean, they have no. It's not like jail that you're. They found, you're charged with a criminal offense. This is just detention because they feel that she's a flight risk and also that she will tamper with evidence, which over 400 police and military and media came to the Chunwon-gung, the Chunjung-gung, her residence, and this other place that we just built. I mean, completely um, just tore it apart. I mean, just went through everything. So there's nothing there that she's gonna, you know, tamper with. But anyway, they use this for to keep her. She's there for over 140 days now. So just yesterday, uh, they decided. I mean, obviously they had doctors that see her. She has a heart issue. She had a heart procedure 2 weeks before they brought her into detention, and the doctor told her she has to rest for at least 2 to 4 weeks. Anyway, but now she needs some either heart operation, and so they gave her 9 days, excused her for 9 days to get whatever procedure that she has to get now. Um, and But she hasn't seen sunlight. She hasn't seen. It's not like you go out, you walk in the court. There's no courtyard. It's a they a little Fiat. They had a little, the size of a Fiat is the size of her the place she's staying. They didn't give her a bed. There's no bed there. It's just like a bedroll, just like uh, just a blanket, a couple of blankets, and that's your mattress. No mattress. Um, there's no seat. There's no place to sit down. It's really horrible. She has to wash her own clothes in the sink. She has to let it dry. It's wet. It's damp. It's beyond. This is South Korea. This is not North Korea. This is South Korea. And
Is there anything that anyone can do? Do you have, I mean, can they contact you? Who should they contact?
yeah, I mean, I, I, I mean, even our government is having a hard time figuring out what to do. I know that President Lee met with our president here. President Lee came to Washington. This was, maybe 4 months ago, and 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 President Trump knew what was going on. It wasn't only our church. There's a Presbyterian minister that just got out of the detention after maybe about the same amount of time, and he was for the same kind of reason. It's very political. If you support somebody or you um, well, let me just give you a little bit of if this, and you could fact check this to make sure, but I believe almost every president um, that was uh, when they lost election or their time was up, they would be put in jail in this detention. And I think for the reasons of uh, possibly not having their followers or their constituents do something radical, and it's maybe something like crowd control. If they
Sure.
keep, something like that. But uh, so so President Trump asked him, "What, presently, what do I hear about this? This you've been raiding churches?" And he goes, "It's not me, it's the prosecutors." And then he heard that somehow we went into our base there, that President Lee's special task force went in to find some bookkeeping issues in our military base in South Korea. I'm sure it's joint, but he was a little surprised to hear that. And so he said, "We'll talk about this later." Anyway, so I think Mark Rubio has been assigned, I guess, to watch over this now. Like you said, Paula White is definitely doing something. Um, what they want to do now, and there's a new precedent because it never happened in Korea, but they want to dissolve our church completely in Korea. But that's because in Japan now they're trying to do that to us in Japan. And again, no infraction legally. We did nothing criminal, but as we're getting stronger and more, you know, in a sense, powerful. I think political regimes, especially, the left, socialists, maybe more leaning communists, are very concerned with our influence over people, uh, and also ideology. Reverend Moon was a very strong anti-communist, fundamentally because it denies the existence of God. And which recently I learned that of all democratic nations, Japan is the has the largest communist party in the world as of different democratic nations.
Yeah.
They've had a legal law group that has been trying to get us for probably the last 40 years. And uh
So
and so yeah,
what we're in a limited time frame. I apologize.
sure.
Is there anything right now that anyone can do out there to contact anyone to help bring some life force to this?
Well, I think you're always welcome to reach out to your Congress for sure. Um, I think pray. I mean,
Right,
honestly,
knew you were going to do it.
yeah, I mean, um, it's not like we need to get the attention of the president. That's what Congress is. But there are things that are moving in terms of, human rights, religious freedom. There was just a recent subcommittee that was, um, I believe it was about human rights and looking into some issues. Uh, of religious freedom. I think it's coming to a head. I mean, we're seeing it all over the world. It's not just in Korea. Um, but the problem is when you have democratic countries that are taking away religious freedom, then it gives to third world countries, especially like in Africa or other third world countries, you have a tendency, well, they did it in Japan and they did it in Korea, we can do it there's a precedent to do it any place.
Yeah,
So if you have if the majority don't believe in any religion or believe in a particular religion, they can isolate and make it very difficult for others. So I
right.
think that's the biggest fear.
Yeah, and to your earlier point about religion and science, which I think is a really important thing. In the past, you had situations where unwieldy religions were repressing different kinds of thought movements that were causing difficulties, such as Galileo and Descartes and other people. And now you're having a situation where more secularized, you know, contemporary nations are repressing the religions because of the power that they have. God is, we've discussed this on Godsearch, God is one of the most radical ideas in the world because it asserts a power beyond any particular power. And we're all secondary creatures compared to something that's beyond us. And it implies a co equality and a respect between people since we come from one source that is common and equal to all of us. Some people call that your Holy Father.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
church calls it Heavenly Parent. There are other,
right.
Heavenly Father is known within the Mormon community. By the way, for those, please, you can always contact Reverend Godner through me, which is go to yourgodsearch.com. I'd appreciate your comments. Also, my first interview, clumsy, but I am learning very rapidly. So let me ask you something. And I'm calling you Bruce, so feel free to call me Mike. Look,
Okay.
you gave me a little bit of a schmitzik of your spirituality, your God search and where you went to. Lift your chin up. I'm losing your boat, dude.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Sure. I'm good.
Um, and yet you fell from an incredible spiritual thrust of air and moving in on horseback and wide open spaces and astral projection, which is very real, by the way. I've had my fair share of experiences on that. You found your way back into a religion.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel the religion itself was valuable to your God search? That was the question I opened up with. Or do you feel like, many people left religion and entered, they didn't want to talk about the R word. They wanted to talk about the S word of spirituality. Do you feel that the religion was turbocharged your spiritual adventure, or do you feel that it became another box for you?
No, I think I had an underlying question of purpose to everything. I mean, not that I was really, just turning over every stone. But I
Interesting.
remember I studied criminology, and at Queens College. And And I remember, and they were just talking about the chromosomes, and and they were trying to figure out you know the why people do what they do, whatever. And I just said, no, there's something more, there's something more. And then I took a class actually later on with a Dr. Rouse, Luan Rouse, who's a clinical psychologist, but also he taught pastoral care and counseling. And when I studied that angle, there was purpose. There was it wasn't the chromosome. It was there was so much more to human beings. And I think that's our God search, is to get to the essence of, I'm a created being, and what's my original nature. So in psychology we call it self-realized or self-actualized, and we all have these different terms for what the original person looks like or what they should be like. And if we're a created being, then what were we created? We were created with a purpose. We don't define our purpose. We might define what we do and how we fulfill that purpose, but the the epicenter of purpose is not from us. If I
Sure.
made a guitar, you know, I mean, you could use it for firewood if it was cold out. You could use it for firewood, but that guitar has a lot more value, you know, in the hands of somebody that knew what it was. And I
Right.
think the same with human beings. If we know who we are, and then if I know who I am, if I know God and myself, then I have to know you. And
Yeah.
then and we talk about peace, we talk about coming together, we talk about the kingdom of heaven. It's like in namaste, right? And the God in me sees the God in you. I'm now looking for that God. I'm not looking for how we differ, or why I shouldn't love you or like you, or anyway. So I think that purpose defining. So yes, it completely opened up. It did the opposite for me. It it was like a box that I wasn't even asking the questions.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was not asking the questions,
Yeah.
but so many, once that door was open, then I could begin to ask questions, because now I know there's answers
Yeah,
for the first time.
that's from a classic theology point of view. I'm not saying it's right, but from a classic theology point of view, it's the distinction between a natural religion and a historical religion. And in a historical religion, which is your Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and has very, very much become the way of thinking for the world global culture, even if it's secular and not religious, or even if it's atheist humanist. That distinction is that the history is the unique destiny and purpose of human beings that is uniquely our own. In other words, only we can sit here on a computer with wires that are connecting us at the speed of light. You're in America. I happen to be in Paris. By the way, out there, my wife is sleeping, so I'm in the kitchen here. If the background looks weird, only we can have a true historical dimension to our material life that frames our purpose. And it sounds like you had been well introduced to your spirituality, had opened up, but with the entrance of your wife and a correct mirror, and you were sent to the extension of marriage, which is family, community, humanity, and
Yeah,
history. And in that sense, I've got to tell you, for a good Jewish boy that came from New York, you made a full circle back to the real teachings of your
really Judaism, right?
of Judaism, which is what, by the way, you must read. If you read Father Moon's books really carefully, you would not realize how unbelievably traditionally Orthodox Jewish it is. It's astonishing. The language is completely different. You have to change it, but always look past the forms of language and the symbols, because you always see something really remarkable. Give I okay, so give everyone out there your advice on how to have a God search real fast.
Well, I think it's a natural, it's a very natural. I don't think I don't think you have to kick the door down on that one. I mean, some people will because
Yeah.
that's just part of their nature. But I think for me, it was like it was very natural. It wasn't, for others, they're, you know, I think just step by step. We have to be open to things that just come in our path, and I have this new philosophy: just show up. Just and then there's things that happen, and there's people you meet, and there's you know the world opens up, God opens up. I mean, I think if we live in a narrow box, then God's, even though God wants to join us in that narrow box, well, he doesn't want to join us in our narrow box, but he gets stuck in our box. He gets his one leg in our box, and then he can't get the other, he can't get it out because
Yeah.
we just, so I think, um, I don't think it's a forced thing. I don't think you know, I think one of the things for me is what Father Moon said: when we can feel the suffering of the world, the kingdom of heaven has already come. In other words, allowing our heart to resonate with what's going on, and suffering, and our own suffering to some extent, and the suffering of others. And if we can empathize and we can feel others, then that's where God is. Because God is a parent, and those are his children. So anybody who's resonating with others is going to resonate with God.
Right. So I think you nailed it because, maybe it's self-congratulatory because I think the exact same way. If you're on a God search and your purpose is to experience the unity, the truth, and the correct use of your causal abilities as a creator of a creator, meaning what is your purpose? What are you going to build in life? If you're alive, you're already on a God search. From the very moment you're born, if not before, you're already on a God search.
Mm.
And I hope this episode with Reverend Bruce Godner of the World Christian Leadership Conference has helped, hey, at least jettison some ideas that if you've been given a religion that is not working for you, then maybe you need another religion, or maybe you need to reinvent the one that you have and join with others to do it. But religion can play an incredibly important role in your spiritual development if it's integrated with your spiritual process and enters in the right place, in the right context, in the right time. Another way to say that is there's something bigger than us. I call it life, if you don't like the G word for God, that's bigger than us, and that's showing us where we need to go to complete ourselves. That's the God experience and the only authority that anyone can go by. So thank you, Bruce. It's cool.
Thank you. It's
All
great. Thank
right.
you.
And I pray for
See you
Mother Moon
soon.
all the time. You know that. And
Yeah.
thank you, everyone, for joining us on Godsearch and for tolerating me bumbling while I'm interviewing for the first time. Uncover God, discover God, and for heaven's sakes, recover God with religion or without
Mm.
religion, because whether you believe God to be there or not is not the case. Something's there and it's big. Experience it. God bless. I'm Michael Shevack. See
Thank you.
you next Wednesday about 7:45 a.m. No, 5:45 a.m. Very early. Worth waking up to. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Bruce.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.